All right, what is going on, people? You know that sound is the Unfiltered band. It means, yes, another episode of Unfiltered coming at you live here and now. Officially, this will go down as episode 127 of the show. Our free agent carousel spotlighting on starting pitching. And thank you, Unfiltered band. You, as always, could jump on board the Unfiltered Revolution anytime, any day, however you want. At Casey Stern and Twitter, jump in there, get in the bio, jump on the YouTube channel, watch all the videos, all the conversations and shenanigans here across 126, now 127 episodes of this show. Also, you can get us over at Twitter or YouTube through Believe Network. That's BLEAV. We continue, you better believe, to hit all the free agents by the time we get to winter meetings here in early December in San Diego. We'll have all the teams covered. We got beat writers coming on. We got people from a national perspective. And as always, you can hit me up a number of ways, even though we're not live here through a chat. You could jump in on YouTube, give your comments and questions and thoughts there, including topics and things from free agency you'd like me to hit in upcoming shows. Happy to hit them for you. Or you can get me a couple of ways at Casey Stern on Twitter, or you could jump in the DMs there as well as we continue here on this train rolling in the Unfiltered Revolution. As always, represented by our good friends at Bet Online. Basketball is back, and BetOnline remains your number one source for all your sports betting needs this season. Latest odds, team matchup info, player news, and game trends over at BetOnline. As your continued source for all your sports wagering information, BetOnline's got live betting, free contests, and giveaways all season long. It's always the fastest and easiest way to bet all your favorite sports and events, whether it's NFL, NBA, NHL, MMA, tennis, boxing, or even golf. Head over to betonline.ag. That's betonline.ag to join. Get your 50% welcome bonus with your first deposit. Make sure to use the promo code BELIEVE, that's BLEAV, to receive your rewards. It's BetOnline, where the game starts. As we get started, and welcome to all of you who are listening, Apple, Spotify, everywhere you get your podcasts or watching on YouTube. We're going to get into a number of the starting pitchers available and some of the storylines, teams to watch, and all sorts of scenarios. And let's begin with Jacob deGrom. There is no doubt that when healthy over the last number of years, Jacob deGrom's the best pitcher in baseball. This is not a disservice or discounting of Justin Verlander, also a free agent who we'll get to. Not discounting the likes of the Max Scherzers or the Cy Young seasons of the Corbin Burns and the Robbie Rays and some of the others over the last number of years. But when Jacob deGrom has been healthy, Jacob deGrom has been it. His numbers bear that out. But when the questions that you have to bring regarding health are the ifs and the whens, then it brings what's it worth. If you're a New York Mets fan, you do not want to lose Jacob deGrom. Clearly, you don't want to lose him for all the things he does when he's there. 1 out of every 5 days, you're the best team in the league. You don't want to lose him because Max Scherzer is aging, and you saw what happened, oblique-related or not, to him at the end of the last season. And the year before he came to you with L.A., when he had the dead arm and the fatigue and all of that as well, and he's sitting there 37, 38, and 39, and 40, look, this is getting older. You don't want to lose him if you're a Met fan because Taijuan Walker's a free agent, because Chris Bassett, even though you gave him the offer, and you probably need to try and have him back because all the innings he gives, what he gave us was, I'm not ready for this moment in big spots at the end of the season. Sorry, that's just reality. Gave all the money to Edwin Diaz. You're trying to spend to win. You're trying to win at the highest of levels. You got the guy in Buck Showalter running the team who will end up officially tonight becoming manager of the year in the National League, I believe. You got a guy and an owner in Steve Cohen that's willing to spend money. You got guys like Lindor and Marte who have proven they're here to do it and in it to win it. You've found and been able to nurture the likes of a Jeff McNeil, now Silver Slugger, and a guy who could have won a Gold Glove and been nominated for it the way he played defensively, and a guy who won a batting title for you. You got questions already with the Nimos of the world, whether or not he comes back, what you do in corner outfield spots, the DH, where Alvarez fits in. To open the can, and the big question without Jacob deGrom is not a can and a question you want to open if you're a Met fan or the New York Mets. But this is where tough decisions need to be made. I love Jacob deGrom. And you think to yourself, well, how are they going to win a World Series without Jacob deGrom? But they didn't win it with him either. Not this year. They got to one that we saw going back 2015 with him. He's won 2 Cy Youngs, a Rookie of the Year. Done everything you could do. But you're not saying, hey, we just won it all, we got to run it back, because you didn't win it all. Then the other side of it is, even though he didn't have his best, the 6 innings he gave you were by far the best performance of the one he had against the Padres of any that a starter gave you, of any of the guys that you have or lost over the last month of the season, in which you seemingly lost every big game you played, where he proved that he's still that dude. The Mets cannot offer Jacob deGrom a 5-year deal. The Mets are not going to want to offer Jacob deGrom a 4-year deal. The Mets will offer him 3. Now, do you let the difference between 3 and 4 years be the reason you lose Jacob deGrom? I will tell you here, covering it and being a Met fan, the answer is no. If you are willing to give Jacob deGrom 3 years at $130 million, or whatever it's going to be, $140 million, whatever it ends up being, if you're willing to do that, you can do the 4th year. Because you know what? By the 4th year at that point, Max Scherzer's off the books. By the 4th year at that point, who the hell knows what's going on with a lot of these guys? You're already going to be living with a bad year of Edwin Diaz, who's not going to be able to make it 5 years strong. You pay him anyway. It's worth it anyway, but he's not going to be playing at $20 million a year. By the way, something closers don't do anyway in the 4th and 5th year of this contract. You're trying to get 3. So if I'm trying to get another 2 out of Scherzer, I know I'm trying to get 3 of the 5 I just paid Diaz. I can pay to get 3 and have it be 3 of 4 with Jacob deGrom. Now, by the way, that doesn't guarantee you that they're all going to be great and that he's going to be healthy. That is the big dilemma, because you don't know what you're getting. There's no safety valve. Now, you can back it up with a signing of a Chris Bassett for 3-4 years at the same term in terms of length of contract, and then say, okay, well, we know we got innings backed up here. We feel like this is where we're going to get him. You can go, get a couple of guys to go fill in the back of the rotation that are innings guys, and say, okay, if Jacob and Max are going to be kind of on and off, and we're going to try and nurture them and get them in bubble wrap and figure out when they're on, then we got to back it up here, here, and here with a lot of innings and innings that we trust. But if you are willing to give 3 years at that money, you give 4. Every single scenario that I can remember covering the game the last 20 years, people, where you've got a contract that a team was willing to give 3 or 4 years, didn't give the 4th, the guy goes somewhere else, that team regrets it. Now, is it the high level of the money they're going to have to pay DeGrom in an AAV? No, it's not. The other scenarios that are in my mind, I'll give you 2 right off the bat. No. I'll give you 2. Baltimore Orioles didn't want to give Nelly Cruz a 4th year. They only wanted to give him 3. Nelly Cruz had come out and dominated, was great in that park, was great with Machado. The team was winning. He had come off all those years in Texas, and he was brilliant for them. And if you remember, people said when we went to Seattle, it's a big park. You're not going to hit as many home runs there. But he had that in a prorated year at 1 year for $8 million because Scott played him in the season, and he didn't have a deal because the Orioles did not want to give him a 4th year. Now, whether or not a player should sit there and say, well, I don't want to take a deal at 3, I deserve 4, and then, sit there and stand on a soapbox, that's the question of pride from a player perspective. And look, we all go through at different levels in terms of with employment or in life of, is this person or are these people valuing what I bring to the table? But if you're willing to bring that money to the table for 3 years, you should do 4. That franchise was changed, altered immediately when Nelly Cruz left. The Texas Rangers and the Angels were sitting there. Now, this was not with a player in a situation like with Cruz, then with Baltimore, DeGrom now with New York, where they had been there and you already knew what they were going to give you. But Adrian Beltre was looking for 5 years. The Angels wanted to give 4. Texas was willing to go to 5. The Angels had, I think, at least 5 third basemen during the time that Beltre took them not to 1, but 2 World Series appearances as a member of the Rangers and solidified his candidacy for the Baseball Hall of Fame in Cooperstown. If you are willing to give 3 or 4 years, you've got to be willing to give that extra year if you really want that player. Otherwise, why pay him $50 million or $45 million a pop for 3? That 4th year may be junk, maybe garbage. But I know it's hard to believe every team, maybe not 45, but got $20, $30 million somewhere where you're like, wow, that reliever's getting 9.5, or that guy's sitting there on the bench getting paid 11. What the hell are they doing with that money? Or this guy's hurt. Every team's got that kind of thing, and Steve Cohen can afford that kind of thing. If you are the New York Mets and you are Jacob deGrom in that situation, to me, deGrom's got to decide, do I then, for pride, want to take 4 to go to a place like Texas and not stay with the Mets with a chance to go to a World Series? Because as much as I love Boch, and Bruce Bochy going to change things up big time, that's going to change everything in Texas. It's not going to be this coming year. They'll get closer, maybe sniff the playoffs, maybe the next year you get in, and then by the third year, the 4 years that DeGrom's at, and you don't even know if you're getting 3 or 4 good ones, DeGrom may be a B or B plus level of himself sitting there when they finally get a chance to win at a high level. Do you want to do that, or do you want to re-rack it, run it back with the Mets, who are going to tweak, who are going to try and add anyway? Ohtani, a free agent next year. They can afford that kind of thing, even though other teams could not. Certainly after paying DeGrom could not. Do you want to sit there and play with Steve Cohen's money for the next 3 years? That's a decision DeGrom needs to make. But for the New York Mets and DeGrom, it's going to come down, in my opinion, to 3 or 4 years. Mets are not going to want it. Now, look, players, doesn't matter the ages, really doesn't. But it is very rare you see players, even pitchers at a high level, certainly if you're talking about a Cy Young caliber, best in the league level, that they don't get at least 4-year deals, even if they don't deserve them. Because they want the stability, and that's what you pay for, to get the guy to come to you. How much does DeGrom really want to be a Met? Now, I think the Braves are going to bring Dansby Swanson back and try and tweak a couple things in the bullpen and run it back. They didn't have a healthy Albies. Acuna really wasn't healthy most of the year. Strider wasn't healthy at the end of the year and develop with them. I don't think the Braves are going to do much at all. I think Swanson comes back to Atlanta. I think they go and tweak a couple things in the bullpen, and I don't think they're going to take a big run at DeGrom. I do think the Giants will, especially if they can't pay for Judge. I do think that teams like Texas will, for sure. I do think there's a chance that Houston could, especially if Verlander doesn't come back. Or maybe they make the choice that way. I don't know. Short term, they could look at both if they're willing to take a couple of years. Try and take 2 shots. There are teams that you can't. Boston needs to figure out front end pitching. They got money to spend. They got money. Okay, their teams are going to take some chances at Jacob DeGrom. But at the end of the day, I think it's going to come down to: does he want to take 4 years from a team like Texas, or do you want to settle for 3 at a high AAV with the Mets? Or then will the Mets go for 4 and try and make it a non-issue? Part of the problem is if you lose out on Jacob DeGrom and you're the New York Metropolitans, where do you go? How do you replace? Who do you replace? Now, you can get more innings. You can replace it with that, certainly, and get somebody who can give you more innings than DeGrom just gave you. You could do it with higher, better security than what DeGrom's been giving you in terms of stability and endurance of being out there, go deeper into games, give you more pitches, not have to keep them in bubble wrap, and all those sorts of things. But is the answer and all of those things, if you're the Mets, for example, a Justin Verlander at age 40? I don't know. For a 2-year deal? 3? The same kind of scenario where if I'm Houston, I'm saying, I know I give him a chance to go win a World Series. I'm giving him 2 for like $80, $85 million, but there may be somebody crazy enough to give Verlander a 3rd and say, screw it, I don't care what the hell happens in that 3rd year. I'm taking 2 shots with Justin Verlander. It would have to be a team that's close. It would have to be a team that's got a chance to win and win now at a high level, like the Dodgers, for example. But I do think that it's possible. Dodgers got a lot of questions they got to figure out. They got a lot of, look, Dustin May not making a lot of money. Tony Gonsolin not making a lot of money. Urias not making a lot of money. Buehler down for the year. Kershaw coming back, not going to be a big expenditure. They got to figure out a lot of things in depth in that rotation. Adding age like Verlander, I don't know if that's the answer to it, but certainly they got the money to go pay him 2 years and $85 million and take a couple of shots and offer him a chance to go be in Hollywood where, look, Kate Upton and company, you sit there in Los Angeles and go win a couple of World Series there. They got a chance to do that. They're going to take a run for sure, in my opinion, at him. Dodgers going to take runs at Judge and others as well. And DeGrom, don't be surprised. Doesn't get mentioned much because people don't think DeGrom necessarily wants to go to the West Coast, but that, it's the Dodgers. If you are the Mets and you are the Astros, you are most likely better suited overpaying the guy than dealing with the devil you don't. It doesn't mean it's the smart thing to do. Give you kind of scenarios. Carlos Rodon, who is available in this marketplace, is a dude, all right? This is a real bona fide dude. This guy proved it now in 2 different spots. In Chicago, went out there and pitched, and we saw him at a Cy Young caliber level. He went out there to San Francisco and a little quietly because the team wasn't very good. Did it again. And for Rodon, he's only 30 years of age. Think about this if you're the New York Mets, for example, And I only bring them up because with DeGrom, this market is going to move off DeGrom and Verlander. DeGrom goes back to the Mets and Verlander goes to the Astros. Then things become very interesting in terms of all the other free agents. But they're way more interesting if they go elsewhere. Because then, forget panic, but the Astros and Mets, the Astros who were just in the World Series and won it, and 6 straight LCSs, and the Mets, who their fan base thinks they're supposed to be in a World Series now, especially with the money Steve Cohen spends, well, where are they going to go? But think about alternatives if you're the Mets. If you're the Mets and you don't get Jacob deGrom and you choose not to get Jacob deGrom and you say, we're not going to pay that kind of money. We love you, Jake, but we need to be more assured of what we're getting. They could go sit there with the qualifying offer, whether he accepts it or not, and try and bring Bassett back. And they know all the innings and you know what you're getting. And most likely, look, I think you take the innings during the regular campaign and you may hope that he's a game 4 guy when you get to a postseason based on what I saw from him in big spots where he looked like he was overwhelmed by being in New York. But you got a chance with Bassett, even at 34 years old, with the way he pitches and his durability. Well, I know if I give Bassett 3 years, I'm getting innings. I'm getting 180 innings every year. I'm getting innings. You could go Bassett. You could bring in a 30-year-old in Carlos Rodon, and then you could go, if you're the Mets, and look at a 32-year-old Andrew Heaney, who they might have interest in trading possibly off an injury if they feel like it's sufficient, and they could try and get a steal from a Glasnow or somebody from the Rays, right? If they go and try through the trade variety and go that level instead. You could think about bringing a Taijuan Walker back, who's only 30 years old. You look at a Sean Manaea, who's 31 years old. And you could try and take some age off with guys like Scherzer sitting at 37, 38 at the front of your rotation. They don't have the answers the Astros do. The Astros have a Christian Javier who could win the Cy Young last year based on what we saw. You got a Valdez who's going to be a Cy Young candidate again based on what we saw. And you still got the Urquidys and the young arms like the Abreu's, and now I brought back Montero and the Presley in the bullpen. Mets got to figure out how to set up Diaz, let alone how to start. And you got to start with figuring out what to do with DeGrom. But Carlos Rodon at 30 years old is being very, very underrated in this market in terms of what kind of damage he can do in adding to a team who is right there on that verge. And he's going to be looking to get paid. Here's a guy who earned his keep and now going to be looking to get bank, and the Mets got money. But Carlos Rodon and his camp know that they got to wait because the team that loses out on Verlander and or DeGrom, that's the team that coming to pay you. Carlos Rodon, that's stupid, and his camp's not going to be stupid either. DeGrom or Verlander or both have to go first. They have to go first. Because whether you're Rodon or Tyler Anderson or any of the other guys, Taijuan Walker, any of the other guys you're looking at in this marketplace, and there are some, valuable names. I don't know what am I overpaying for Tyler Anderson? Seems like a pitch-to-contact guy, and how the hell is this happening? Has this unbelievable year with the Dodgers. If I'm the Dodgers, I may look at it and wanting to keep him because I knew what he did there. But if I'm another team, I may be thinking to myself, and I know I would, and I like Tyler Anderson. He's a good dude. And he threw, for the 86 pitches they let him stay in, he looked good in the postseason too. But was it that scenario? Was it that setting? Was it, where he was and how he fit in there? And what if I bring him here and then he gets the contract and the pressure? Are we going to go back to the old Tyler Anderson, which I don't know what I'm getting, and pitch to contact guys in this day and age, especially when you're moving off the shifts and all of that, where strikeouts may be even much more valuable and more important? And high velo, much more valuable, more important, because contact now may create more hits. Base runners are going to create more stolen bases and more runs. And I got to try and shut you down, and I ain't getting swing and miss. Carlos Rodon could get you swing and miss. That's a bad dude, 30 years old. He's going to get paid, but he knows he got to wait till Verlander or DeGrom go. That's the domino effect you're going to watch with these starting pitchers. Because if the Mets miss out on DeGrom and he goes elsewhere, or they're willing to give 3, let's say and again, who knows? I'm just giving you my opinion. But they're willing to give 3 at a high AAV and make him the highest paid pitcher per year that anyone's ever seen, but not do it for more than 3 years. And then another team's willing to give 4 with an AAV that's around the same, or maybe even a little bit more, because they're more desperate to bring DeGrom than you are to bring him back. Let's say with Scherzer at the front end already, and with other options with finances to handle it, and in your system through trade to handle it. Well, you lose that, Goot. You're making the phone call. Where? Hey, Carlos Rodon. Where are you making the call? This domino thing has got to begin with what we see with DeGrom and Verlander. And from an age standpoint, Jacob DeGrom, only 35 years old, but man, he could be looking like he's 45 in some of these starts when you get to the fifth inning, and you're going to pay for a 5-and-dive guy who's going to give you 20-something starts a year. I mean, how much are you paying for that? I don't care how great he is. Got to be careful. Love the dude. Got to be careful. That kind of next tier, I mentioned Tyler Anderson, 33 years old. Definitely a guy who teams are going to look at after what he did last year for sure. For sure. You got Evaldi, who's 33. I mean, Andrew Heaney, interesting. Upside still there. You're always looking for upside. Left-handed. Taijuan Walker kind of like the name you know. I go back to the Distinguished Gentleman and Eddie Murphy and Jefferson Johnson. Taijuan Walker, you know what you're getting. Taijuan Walker are the stats you know. Look, he's going to tail off a little bit in the second half. He's not a high strikeout guy, but he's going to give you innings, going to give you a chance to win. He probably put you in position because obviously it's we know what wins and losses are, but he put you in position to win probably about 15 of the starts that he makes. He's going to give you a chance to hand over the bullpen to win even more than that. And at 30 years old, he's going to go out there and pitch. He put those concerns behind him. Guy's going to get paid, and I don't think Taijuan Walker is going to be a Met. I expect Taijuan Walker to end up in Baltimore or in Boston or somewhere else where they really, really need to add guys that you trust at the front of the rotation, where he might end up being a 2 or a 1B for a young team somewhere, getting 4-year deal where you're just not going to get that from the Mets. I think he's gone. Minaya, 31 years old. Left-handed, right? Something to look. Ross Stripling, interesting, had an interesting year. How much do you really trust that? Syndergaard at 30, but what are you really getting? I don't know. It's not a deep market for starting pitchers. It's not, people. The shortstop market, it's like va-boom. But you get the starting pitching market, I don't know what I'm getting. That's why the DeGrom and Verlander domino effect, and then domino not only into the Rodon piece, but into the trade piece is going to be so fascinating to watch. It can be fun to watch. A lot of fingers and toesies going to be crossed in New York and in Houston, for sure. You could jump on board, uncross them, and use them. Don't worry about the arthritis. Type to me on Twitter at Casey Stern. Get in the DMs. Give me your comments on YouTube. Continue to chat. What pitcher do you believe in? And I'm curious, outside of those top guys that we talk about with DeGrom and Verlander and Rodon, I want to hear from you on Twitter. Or jump in on, after you listen to Apple, Spotify, anywhere you get your podcast, get at me on Twitter or on YouTube and get in the comments. I want to hear, what's the pitcher you trust? Who's the guy you think not being valued enough that could be a dude and a big bang for your buck guy in that second tier or even third tier in this marketplace? Because a lot of times it is about finding upside. It's about that low risk where you find the ability to get some big time reward in the starting pitching market. Beyond the top names, it might not be there. Good to have you here. Free Agent Carousel, starting pitching, books. Our thanks, as always, the folks who helped make this happen. Because, as always, Unfiltered is presented by our good friends at BetOnline.